I always assumed strength was about what you could see. Arms, core, back, the muscles you train, the ones you notice in the mirror. What nobody tells you is that some of the most important muscles in your body are ones you've never once thought about, never trained, never stretched, never even acknowledged. And after 50, those hidden muscles start to matter in ways that affect everything. Performance, confidence, the feeling of being fully functional in your own body. I noticed changes I didn't have a name for. Not dramatic, not sudden, just a slow, quiet erosion of something I used to take for granted. I thought it was hormones, maybe circulation, maybe just age doing what age does. Turns out it was a muscle group I'd never heard of, and 5 specific movements done on the floor of my living room started changing things within weeks. I started reading about the pelvic floor, and like most men, my first reaction was, oh, that's not relevant to me. Kept following the research, and what I found was this. After 40, a specific group of deep muscles quietly weakens every single year. These muscles, the pelvic floor, are the ones that control blood retention during an erection. They act like a lock, holding blood inside the erectile tissue, keeping firmness where it needs to be. When they're strong and flexible, the lock holds. When they weaken, tighten, or lose coordination, the lock slips. And no amount of healthy hormones or good circulation fully compensates for a lock that doesn't close properly. I needed someone who could show me exactly how to train these muscles, not in theory, in practice. And Angela Foster, 15 years helping men rebuild the deep muscle systems that nobody ever taught them to use. What she showed me changed how I think about my body entirely. Before we get into the 5 movements, if you're new to this channel, this is what we do here. Honest conversations about men's health after 50. No hype. No shortcuts. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Now, let's get into it, starting with the foundation, the movement that wakes everything up. Dr. Foster, before we get to the movements, help me understand what's actually failing, because I always assumed performance issues were about hormones or blood flow.
Those factors matter, Mike. But here's what most men are never told. Even with healthy testosterone and good cardiovascular circulation down, if the pelvic floor muscles are weak or poorly coordinated, firmness still slips away. Think of it this way. Blood flow brings the water, but the pelvic floor is the dam. If the dam has gaps, it doesn't matter how much water you send. It drains before it builds pressure. The first movement we're going to do starts rebuilding that dam. It's called the pelvic tilt, and it looks simple from the outside, but inside your body, it's reestablishing a connection that may have gone quiet for years.
Walk me through it, exactly.
Lie flat on your back, knees bent at roughly 45 degrees, feet hip-width apart, firmly on the floor, arms resting at your sides, palms down. Take a steady breath in. As you exhale, gently pull your lower abdomen in toward your spine. Press your lower back into the floor, removing the gap underneath. Feel your pelvis tilt slightly upward, just enough to notice the contraction. No strain, no forcing. Hold for 3 to 5 seconds, then slowly release back to neutral.
I did this for the first time last week. And in that 3-second hold muley, I felt muscles fired that I genuinely had no conscious awareness of before. Deep, internal, like waking something up that had been asleep for a long time.
That's the co-contraction activating. Your core and your pelvic floor firing together as one system. That coordinated contraction is the same pattern your body uses to trap blood during an erection. By training it consciously, you're rebuilding the neural pathway between your brain and that lock mechanism. Start with 10 to 15 slow, precise repetitions. Precision matters far more than speed here. Over the coming weeks, build to 20 or 25 reps. Men who practice this consistently often describe a shift around week 3, a feeling of holding firmness rather than watching it fade.
So the first movement activates the system. What comes next?
Now we stretch and strengthen at the same time. Think about how many hours a day you spend sitting. Work, car, evening, meals. All of that sitting shortens the hip flexors, tightens the abdomen, and quietly cuts off circulation to the pelvic region. It's one of the most consistent patterns I see in men over 50 who struggle with firmness. Not aging, sitting. The prone stretch directly reverses that pattern.
How does it work?
Lie face down on a mat or carpet. Place your elbows directly under your shoulders. Forearms flat on the floor, legs fully extended behind you, toes pointed back. Gently lift your chest, just enough to feel the front of your body lengthen. Gaze forward or slightly down to protect your neck. Now, while holding that position, Draw your belly button gently toward your spine and lightly contract your pelvic floor. Hold for 20 to 30 seconds. Release. Repeat 3 to 4 times.
I tried this the morning after the pelvic tilt.
Wow.
That stretch through the front of my body, the abdomen, the hip flexors, was immediate and deep. I hadn't realized how compressed that whole region had become.
What you're feeling is years of sitting beginning to unwind. And here's what matters for performance specifically. When that front body tension releases, the signals between your brain and your pelvic floor travel faster and more clearly. Think of it like upgrading the connection from a slow, interrupted signal to something clear and immediate. Men who practice this regularly report better posture through the day, less lower back tension, and most importantly, a stronger mind-body connection to the muscles that matter most.
I'm starting to see what these movements have in common. They're not just about one muscle. They're about systems connecting.
That's exactly it, Mike. And the third movement takes that one step further. It adds breath. Because your breathing pattern and your pelvic floor are directly linked. When you breathe correctly, your diaphragm drops on the inhale, creating gentle pressure that the pelvic floor responds to. Most men breathe shallowly, chest only. The diaphragm barely moves, and the pelvic floor, which should be rhythmically engaging with every breath, goes silent. This movement re-establishes that rhythm. It's called the kneeling core breath.
Starting position.
All fours, hands under shoulders, knees under hips, spine completely neutral, not arched, not rounded, natural and level. Now, exhale slowly through your mouth. As you exhale, draw your belly button in toward your spine. Core tightens, stomach flattens, shoulders and neck stay completely relaxed. At the same time, lightly contract the pelvic floor. Imagine gently lifting the muscles deep inside your pelvis upward. Hold that coordinated contraction for 3 to 5 seconds. Then release with full control on the inhale. Contract on the exhale, release on the inhale. That rhythm is the whole exercise.
I practiced this for a week straight. By day 4-1, something shifted in how those muscles responded. They started firing more predictably, more on command. Like finding a gear I didn't know my body had.
That's coordination developing. And coordination, not just strength, is what directly translates to staying power and conscious control over your own function. Start with 10 to 15 slow repetitions. As strength grows, extend the hold to 7 or 10 seconds. You're not just building muscle here. You're rebuilding the neural map that gives you voluntary control over your own function.
The first 3 movements feel foundational. What happens when you add load?
Now we test the system under real pressure. The bridge abduction is where everything you've built so far gets put to work simultaneously. Lie flat on your back, knees bent to roughly 90 degrees, feet hip-width apart, planted firmly about a foot from your hips. Arms at your sides, palms down. Take a breath. As you exhale, press your heels into the floor and lift your hips toward the ceiling. Your body forms a straight line from shoulders to knees. Hold it steady. Now, while maintaining the bridge, gently push your knees outward, as if trying to spread the floor apart with your legs. Hold that outward pressure for 2 to 3 seconds, then bring your knees back to center with control.
The first time I did this, I felt it everywhere at once. The pelvic floor contracting, the glutes firing, the hips stabilizing, like the whole lower system activating as a unit for the first time.
That's exactly what's happening. Your pelvic floor is contracting to maintain the lock. Your glutes, the largest muscles in your body, are pumping circulation through the pelvis. And your hip abductors, which most men never train, are stabilizing everything and boosting blood flow directly where it's needed. This is functional strength. Not strength for its own sake, strength that translates directly to how your body performs under real conditions. Men who stick with this consistently report not only stronger erections, but better hip mobility, less lower back strain, and noticeably greater stamina. Start with 8 to 10 slow, controlled repetitions. Build toward 15 or 20 over the coming weeks.
For an additional challenge, place a light resistance band just above your knees. The added resistance deepens the activation without adding impact to your joints. You mentioned earlier that if the pelvic floor is too tight, it can actually work against you. That surprised.
It's the most overlooked piece of this entire conversation. Men focus entirely on strengthening, and strength matters. But a pelvic floor that is chronically over-tight restricts blood flow, creates internal pressure, and actually makes it harder to maintain firmness. The goal isn't maximum tension. The goal is the right balance, strong enough to hold, flexible enough to release. The rocking frog stretch is what creates that balance.
How do I set it up?
Start on all fours. Slowly widen your knees into a V shape, feet turned outward so your inner thighs open. Lower down onto your forearms, keeping your spine straight and head relaxed. You'll feel a deep stretch through your inner thighs, hips, and groin immediately. Breathe into it. Don't force the depth. Now, begin gently rocking your hips forward and back in a smooth, slow rhythm, like a gentle wave moving through your pelvis. Hold the position for 30 to 40 seconds while maintaining that slow rocking motion. Rest for 20 seconds. Repeat 2 to 3 times.
I'd been doing 4 strengthening movements, building contraction, building hold, and then I did this. The release was immediate. A depth of loosening through the hips and pelvis I hadn't felt in years.
That release is the missing piece that most pelvic floor programs skip entirely. Strength without release builds tightness. Tightness restricts blood flow, and restricted blood flow undoes everything the other 4 movements built. The rocking motion specifically creates fluid movement through the pelvic floor, improving circulation, promoting tissue hydration, and retraining the muscles to contract and release in perfect balance. Over a few weeks of consistent practice, the hips open, the pelvic floor finds its natural rhythm, and erections become more responsive, more sustained, and more sensitive.
5 movements, each one doing something distinct. The pelvic tilt activating the system, the prone stretch releasing the compression that sitting creates, the kneeling core breath linking breath, core, and pelvic floor into one rhythm, the bridge abduction loading the whole system under real pressure, and the rocking frog releasing what the other 4 movements build.
That's the progression, Mike. And it matters that the order is right. You can't load a system that hasn't been activated. You can't activate effectively if compression isn't first released. And you can't sustain results if you only ever build tension without releasing it. Each movement prepares the body for the next. Together, readdress the full mechanism. 5 to 10 minutes a day. No equipment, no gym. Just floor space and consistency. Most men notice something within 2 to 3 weeks. Not a dramatic transformation, a quiet shift. Firmness returning, control improving, confidence rebuilding from the inside. By 2 to 3 months of daily practice, the changes are real, lasting, and earned.
I want to be direct about something. These movements are not difficult. They don't require willpower or a gym membership or an hour of your morning. What they require is showing up. I've been doing this sequence for 6 weeks. Week 1, I felt the muscles for the first time. Week 2, the morning erections became more consistent. Week 3, the lower back tension I carry every day began to quietly release. Week 4, the word that kept coming to mind was control. Not just performance, control. The feeling of being present in my own body, functioning the way I want it to function. That's what 5 to 10 minutes a day built. Not quickly, not dramatically, quietly, steadily, reliably.
This is tissue and neural rehabilitation. And rehabilitation responds to one thing above everything else, repetition. Not intensity, not duration, repetition. Every day you do these movements, you send a signal to your nervous system that this pattern of activation matters. And your body responds to signals that are sent consistently. That's not a motivational statement. That's how neuroplasticity works. The men who see the most significant results aren't the ones who pushed hardest in week 1. They're the ones who were still doing it in week 8.
Here's my challenge to you. Tonight, pick one of these 5 movements, just one. Do it tomorrow morning, and the morning after that, and the one after that. 7 days. Then come back and tell me what you noticed. Because your story might be exactly what another man needs to hear to take his first step. Drop it in the comments. I read every one. And if this video gave you something real, share it with one man in your life who needs this information. If you haven't subscribed yet, this is the channel where we have these conversations. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, so it's never too late to rebuild what quietly slipped away.
Your body built these muscles once. It remembers how. Give it the right signal, consistently, and it will rebuild them again.